The baby monitor crackled to life at 11:47 p.m., and I heard my marriage collapse in real time. I'd repurposed the old monitor for my home office after our son Benji outgrew it. The receiver picked up signals from throughout our colonial-style house in suburban Massachusetts, which proved useful for conference calls when clients rambled on speakerphone. Tonight, it intercepted something else entirely. "Use the corporate card," came my mother-in-law's voice through the static. Vera Halden's tone carried that familiar authority she wielded like a conductor's baton. "He never checks it anyway." My wife Isla's laugh followed, nervous, conspiratorial. "Mom, what if nothing? Meet Damon at the usual place. Your father never suspected either." I sat frozen in my leather desk chair, architectural blueprints scattered beneath my paralyzed hands. The monitor hissed with electronic interference, but their voices cut through clearly enough to shatter 12 years of marriage. The usual place had to be the Marriott downtown. Isla claimed monthly dinners there with her HR department colleagues. I'd never questioned it, never thought to verify. Why would I? Trust forms the foundation of any solid structure. Remove it, and everything collapses. "Damon's getting suspicious about the hotel expenses," Isla continued. "His wife Monica reviews their statements. Then alternate locations. The Hilton, the Renaissance, that boutique place on Newbury Street. Variety keeps things interesting." Vera's advice flowed with practiced ease, like she'd delivered this guidance before. My hands trembled as I reached for the record button on my phone. 12 years of marriage, and my wife was discussing affair logistics with her mother like they were planning a charity fundraiser, which, ironically, was how they'd first met Damon Vossel at one of Vera's endless charity galas. "What about Holden?" Isla asked. My name sounded foreign in her mouth, clinical. "What about him? He's buried in those building projects, travels constantly for work. Tell him you're with me if he asks questions. I'll confirm it." The casual dismissal stung worse than the betrayal itself. I wasn't even a worthy adversary in their conspiracy, just an obstacle to manage, like a zoning restriction or building code violation. "Sometimes I feel guilty," Isla admitted. "Guilt is wasted energy. All men cheat eventually. At least you did it quietly, discreetly. Your father never suspected, and we've been married 37 years. The admission hung in the air like smoke from an electrical fire. Vera hadn't just enabled Isla's affair, she'd modeled it. The pattern stretched across generations, mother teaching daughter the family business of deception. "I should go," Isla whispered. "He'll wonder why I'm up so late." "Of course, dear. Sleep well." The monitor fell silent except for ambient house noise, the heating system cycling, floorboards settling, the refrigerator humming downstairs. Normal sounds of a normal house where normal people lived, normal lives. Except nothing about my life was normal anymore. I saved the recording to 3 separate cloud accounts, then sat staring at my computer screen until the words blurred. The architectural plans before me showed the renovation proposal for the Riverside Community Center. My biggest project this year. Clean lines, solid foundation, everything built to last. The irony wasn't lost on me. Footsteps creaked overhead as Isla moved through our bedroom. She'd probably slip into bed beside me within minutes, kiss my forehead if she thought I was asleep, maybe even whisper, "I love you," like she had every night for 12 years. The routine would continue seamlessly, her performance polished by months of practice. I gathered the blueprints and locked them in my filing cabinet, muscle memory taking over while my mind raced. How long had this been happening? How many late meetings and girls' nights had actually been rendezvous with Damon Vossel? How many times had Vera looked me in the eye at family dinners, knowing exactly what her daughter was doing? The house settled around me as I climbed the stairs to our bedroom. Isla lay curled on her side, brown hair spilled across the pillow, breathing steady and peaceful. She looked innocent in sleep, like the woman I'd married fresh out of college. The woman who'd helped me pick out this house, who'd painted Benji's nursery, who'd stood beside me at my father's funeral 3 years ago. That woman might have been real once. Or maybe she'd always been a performance, and I'd been too trusting to notice the cracks in her facade. I slipped into bed without waking her, staring at the ceiling until dawn crept through our bedroom windows. By morning, I'd made my decision. If Isla and Vera wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules, but I'd play to win. 3 weeks of investigation yielded a folder labeled Archive that grew to 207 pages of evidence. I approached it like any architectural project, methodical, thorough, building from a solid foundation of facts. The corporate credit card statements told the first story. Isla's company, Henderson and Associates, provided cards for senior HR executives to cover client entertainment and business meals. I'd never questioned the monthly charges because Isla handled our household finances with typical corporate efficiency. But patterns emerged when I organized the data chronologically. Hotel charges appeared every second Thursday, alternating between 4 downtown locations. Restaurant bills for 2 people at establishments far from Henderson's offices. Parking fees near Damon's consulting firm on days when Isla claimed to be visiting her mother. Cloud backups proved even more revealing. Isla had forgotten about the automatic sync between her phone and our shared family account. Deleted text messages restored themselves like digital ghosts, conversations she'd thought were permanently erased. Committee meeting ran late, read one message to me, sent at 6:15 p.m. on a Tuesday in March. The same timestamp showed a text to someone labeled D, room 412, same time tomorrow? Calendar entries provided the timeline. Dinner with Mom appeared monthly, but when I cross-referenced these dates with Vera's actual schedule, charity board meetings, book club, her part-time job at the art gallery, the conflicts were obvious. Isla was definitely not having dinner with her mother on those nights. My investigator, Mick Rodriguez, a former Boston police detective who specialized in domestic cases, filled in the remaining gaps. I'd hired him after the second week of my own investigation, when I realized I needed professional help to uncover the full scope of the deception. "Your wife's been seeing Damon Vossel for approximately 14 months, Mick reported during our meeting at a coffee shop in Cambridge, far from my neighborhood. They met initially at a charity gala organized by your mother-in-law in September 2022. The affair began shortly after. How do you know the timeline? Hotel security footage, credit card records, phone location data. Your wife's patterns are consistent. Every other Thursday, occasional weekend meetings when you're traveling for work. She's careful but not paranoid. Amateur hour, really." Mick slid a manila envelope across the table. "But here's where it gets interesting. Your mother-in-law has her own history with extramarital activities." The photographs inside showed Vera entering the same hotels Isla frequented, but these images were dated 15 years ago. Different man, same pattern of behavior. "Richard Blackwood," Mick explained. "Married, 2 kids, owned a construction company. The affair lasted 7 years, from 1995 to 2002. Your father-in-law never knew." "How did you find this?" "Hotel loyalty programs keep records forever. Credit card companies archive everything. Private investigators develop relationships with people who have access to information. Your mother-in-law used the same methods she's teaching your wife. Corporate cards, rotating locations, careful scheduling. The generational pattern crystallized with disturbing clarity. Vera hadn't just enabled Isla's affair, she'd provided a blueprint based on personal experience. Mother teaching daughter, passing down family traditions like recipes or holiday customs. "There's more," Mick continued. "Richard Blackwood's construction company received several contracts for projects your mother-in-law recommended through her charity connections. Property transfers, consulting fees, payments disguised as legitimate business expenses." She was paying him? Or he was paying her? Hard to tell from the paper trail, but money changed hands beyond hotel rooms and restaurant bills. Your mother-in-law has expensive tastes. I studied the photographs, seeing Vera in a new light. The woman who'd welcomed me into the family, who'd helped plan our wedding, who'd babysat Benji countless times, had been running elaborate deceptions for decades. Her advice to Isla wasn't motherly wisdom. It was professional expertise. "What about Damon Vossel?" I asked. "Married to Monica Chen, no kids, lives in Newton. He's a management consultant, travels frequently, makes good money. Clean record, no previous affairs that I could find. Your wife might be his first indiscretion. Or his first time getting caught. Possibly, but he's sloppy compared to your mother-in-law's previous arrangement. Uses his personal credit card sometimes, doesn't vary his routine enough, leaves digital footprints everywhere. If his wife ever decides to investigate, she'll find everything within a week." The irony struck me. I was investigating my own wife's affair using the same methodical approach I applied to architectural projects. Foundation, framework, detailed specifications, quality control. The evidence was solid, the timeline clear, the pattern undeniable. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed strategy. "What's your recommendation?" I asked Mick. "Depends on your goals. Quick divorce, maximum financial settlement, custody of your son, those require different approaches. Some of my clients want public exposure, others prefer private confrontation. What do you want?" I thought about Vera's voice through the baby monitor. "All men cheat eventually. At least you did it quietly." The casual dismissal, the assumption that I was too stupid or too busy to notice, the generational conspiracy against the men in their family. "I want them to understand they picked the wrong target," I said finally. "I want consequences that match the scope of their deception." Mick smiled for the first time during our meeting. "Now you're talking my language. Let's discuss options." The recorder app on my phone captured Vera's voice with crystal clarity as she addressed the monthly book club meeting in our living room. I'd positioned myself in the basement directly below, listening through the heating vent I'd strategically opened that morning. "Marriage requires realistic expectations," Vera was saying. "Men are fundamentally selfish creatures. They provide financial security in exchange for domestic comfort, but emotional fulfillment must come from other sources." Murmurs of agreement from the assembled women, neighbors and friends who'd known Isla and me for years. Mrs. Patterson from next door, Janet from Isla's yoga class, Carol, whose husband worked with me on the community center project. "Take my son-in-law," Vera continued. "Holden's a good provider, devoted father, but he's completely absorbed in his work. Travels constantly, stays late at the office, brings blueprints home on weekends. Isla feels invisible in her own marriage." The revisionist history flowed smoothly, painting me as the neglectful husband whose emotional absence justified whatever Isla might need to do for companionship. Never mind that I'd adjusted my travel schedule when Benji was born, that I'd built my home office specifically to spend more time with family, that I'd proposed romantic weekend getaways that Isla consistently declined due to work commitments. "Has she considered counseling?" asked Janet. "She's suggested it multiple times. Holden refuses, says he doesn't have time for relationship maintenance, as if marriage were just another construction project he could manage with the right tools." The fabrication was masterful, specific enough to sound credible, general enough to avoid verification. I'd never refused counseling because Isla had never suggested it. Our relationship had seemed solid until 3 weeks ago when the baby monitor revealed the truth. "What about that consultant she works with?" Carol asked. "Damon something? He seems nice." "Damon Vossel," Isla said, speaking for the first time. "He's been helping with our employee satisfaction surveys. Very professional, very insightful about workplace dynamics." "Handsome, too," added Mrs. Patterson with a laugh. "I suppose," Isla replied with practiced casualness. "I hadn't really noticed." The performance was flawless, just enough deflection to seem genuine, just enough acknowledgement to satisfy curiosity. If I hadn't heard the baby monitor conversation, if I hadn't seen Mick's evidence, I might have believed it myself. "The important thing is communication," Vera concluded. "Isla knows she can talk to me about anything. I've been married for 37 years, survived my share of challenges. Experience teaches valuable lessons. Experience indeed. Vera's 7-year affair with Richard Blackwood had apparently provided extensive education in deception techniques, which she was now sharing with her daughter, and, apparently, half the neighborhood. The book club discussion shifted to their monthly selection, some romance novel about a woman finding herself through an affair with a mysterious stranger. The timing seemed intentionally ironic. I climbed the basement stairs and emerged into the kitchen as the meeting concluded. The women filed out with their usual pleasantries, air-kissing and promising to call soon. Vera remained behind to help Isla clean up, as she always did. "Lovely evening," I said, entering the living room where they were collecting wine glasses and dessert plates. "The book was fascinating," Vera replied, "about a woman trapped in a loveless marriage who discovers passion with someone who truly understands her." "Sounds unrealistic," I said. "Most affairs end badly for everyone involved. The cheating spouse loses credibility, the betrayed spouse loses trust, the children suffer, the extended family gets torn apart. Hard to see the appeal." Isla's hand trembled slightly as she stacked the dessert plates. "It's fiction, Holden. People read romance novels for escapism, not life advice." "Of course. Though I've always believed that actions have consequences, whether in fiction or reality. Secrets tend to surface eventually, especially in small communities where everyone knows everyone else's business." Vera's smile remained perfectly composed, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "You seem unusually philosophical tonight." "Just thinking about foundation work. I've been reviewing structural integrity reports for the community center project. Amazing how small cracks can compromise entire buildings if left untreated. The damage spreads gradually, invisibly, until one day everything collapses." "How interesting," Vera said. "I should get home. Felix will be wondering where I am." After she left, Isla and I finished cleaning in relative silence. She seemed distracted, checking her phone repeatedly, responding to texts with quick, furtive glances in my direction. "Everything all right?" I asked. "Just work stuff. Damon's having issues with the employee satisfaction data. Wants to schedule an emergency meeting tomorrow night to review the preliminary results. Tomorrow's Thursday." "I know. Bad timing, but these corporate deadlines don't accommodate personal schedules." Another Thursday meeting. Another lie delivered with perfect sincerity. I nodded sympathetically while calculating the timing. If Isla left for her emergency meeting at 6 p.m., she'd arrive at whichever hotel they'd chosen by 6:30, giving them 3 hours before she needed to return home with a plausible story about data analysis and strategic planning. "Need me to pick up Benji from soccer practice?" I offered. "That would be helpful. The meeting might run late." "Of course it might." That night, I lay awake listening to Isla's breathing, thinking about foundation work and structural integrity. Every building started with excavation, digging deep, removing unstable soil, pouring concrete that would support whatever came next. The process was methodical, irreversible, and absolutely critical to long-term stability. My marriage was collapsing due to foundational problems I'd never recognized. But I was an architect, trained to design solutions for complex structural challenges. If Isla and Vera wanted to play construction games, they'd picked the wrong opponent. Time to start digging. Felix Roard's 70th birthday party filled the main dining room at the Riverside Country Club with 3 generations of family and 40 years of friendships. I'd volunteered to handle the audio-visual setup for the evening's slideshow presentation, which gave me legitimate access to the sound system and microphone controls. "Testing, testing," I said into the wireless microphone as guests mingled during the cocktail hour. My voice carried clearly through the room's speakers, drawing approving nods from Vera, who'd organized every detail of the celebration with her typical precision. "Sounds perfect," she said, approaching the head table where I'd positioned the laptop and audio equipment. "The slideshow is queued up?" "Ready to go. 47 years of memories, chronologically arranged, set to Felix's favorite music. Should take about 12 minutes. Wonderful. He'll be so moved. Vera wore an elegant navy dress and her grandmother's pearl necklace, the picture of a devoted wife celebrating her husband's milestone birthday. She'd spent weeks planning this event, coordinating with the country club staff, designing custom invitations, selecting menu options that accommodated various dietary restrictions. The perfect hostess, hiding decades of deception behind gracious smiles and thoughtful gestures. Isla circulated through the crowd in a burgundy cocktail dress, accepting compliments on the floral arrangements she'd supposedly chosen, but which I knew Vera had selected during one of their regular planning lunches. She looked beautiful, poised, every inch the loving daughter honoring her father's special day. Damon Vossel had not been invited, naturally. This was a family celebration, and he remained safely compartmentalized in Isla's other life. Though I noticed her checking her phone regularly, probably exchanging texts about their next rendezvous. "Uncle Holden!" My nephew Tommy, Felix's brother's grandson, bounded up to the equipment table. "Can you play my request during dinner?" "What did you have in mind?" "That song from the 80s Dad always plays in the car. Don't Stop Believing by Journey." "I'll see what I can do." The kid's enthusiasm reminded me why I'd always enjoyed family gatherings. The genuine connections, shared history, sense of belonging to something larger than yourself, which made Vera and Isla's betrayal even more devastating. They weren't just destroying marriages, they were contaminating the entire family structure with lies and manipulation. Dinner proceeded smoothly through the appetizer and main course. Felix seemed genuinely happy, surrounded by people who cared about him, sharing stories and laughter with friends he'd known since college. He had no idea that his wife had been unfaithful for years, that his daughter was following the same pattern, that the two women he trusted most had been conspiring against the family's stability. But he was about to learn. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced as the servers cleared the dinner plates, "before we bring out the birthday cake, Felix's family has prepared a special presentation celebrating his 70 years of memories, achievements, and relationships." The lights dimmed as the slideshow began. Childhood photographs of Felix growing up in rural Massachusetts, high school graduation, college years at Boston University. Wedding pictures showing him and Vera as a young couple, radiantly happy, full of hope for their future together. The images progressed through their early marriage, Felix's career as a high school principal, Isla's childhood, family vacations, holiday celebrations. Decades of seemingly happy memories, accompanied by Frank Sinatra's "The Way You Look Tonight," their wedding song. I let the slideshow run for 8 minutes, allowing the assembled guests to immerse themselves in nostalgia and sentiment. Felix wiped his eyes during the section showing Isla's childhood, clearly moved by the reminder of how quickly time had passed. Then I switched audio inputs. Vera's voice filled the room through the country club's premium sound system. "Use the corporate card. He never checks it anyway." The slideshow continued showing family photos, but the audio track had changed to the baby monitor recording from 3 weeks ago. Conversations halted mid-sentence as guests tried to process the disconnect between the visual and auditory information. "Meet Damon at the usual place," Vera's voice continued. "Your father never suspected either." Felix's face went pale as he recognized his wife's voice. His hand trembled as he set down his champagne glass, eyes fixed on the speakers as if he could see the words emerging. Isla's laugh echoed through the dining room, followed by her response. "What about Holden?" "What about him? He's buried in those building projects, travels constantly for work. Tell him you're with me if he asks questions. I'll confirm it." The room had fallen completely silent, except for the recording. 43 people listening to a conversation that revealed decades of deception, current infidelity, and casual dismissal of the two men being honored and betrayed. "Sometimes I feel guilty," came Isla's voice. "Guilt is wasted energy. All men cheat eventually. At least you did it quietly, discreetly. Your father never suspected, and we've been married 37 years. Felix's jaw clenched as his wife's admission filled the room. 37 years of marriage, and she'd been unfaithful while advising their daughter to follow the same pattern. The betrayal was generational, methodical, and now completely public. I switched the audio back to Frank Sinatra as the slideshow concluded with recent family photos: Felix and Vera at Christmas, Isla and me at Benji's school play, 4 generations gathered around last year's birthday cake. The images seemed to mock the happy family narrative they'd all believed was real. The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before Felix stood up slowly, his movements careful and deliberate, like a man trying not to fall. "Thank you all for coming," he said, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "I think we'll skip the cake tonight." Guests began filing out in awkward clusters, whispering among themselves, avoiding eye contact with Vera and Isla. The celebration had become a public humiliation, witnessed by friends, family, and community members who would remember this evening for years to come. Vera sat frozen in her chair, the perfect hostess facade finally cracked beyond repair. Isla stared at me with a mixture of shock and rage, probably calculating how I'd obtained the recording and what other evidence I might possess. Felix approached the head table where I was disconnecting the audio equipment. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I'm sorry it had to happen this way. Better to know the truth, even when it hurts." He walked out of the dining room without looking back at his wife, leaving Vera to face the wreckage of her carefully constructed celebration alone. By midnight, Felix had contacted his attorney. The divorce papers were filed the following Monday morning. The courthouse steps were slick with October rain as Felix and I emerged from his attorney's office. 2 divorce cases, filed simultaneously, both citing irreconcilable differences and adultery. The paperwork was clean, methodical, and devastating in its thoroughness. 37 years, Felix said, pulling his coat tighter against the wind. "I keep thinking there must have been signs I missed. They were careful, professional-level deception. Your investigator found evidence of Vera's affair going back 15 years? 7-year relationship with Richard Blackwood, hotel records, financial transfers, even photographs. She's been perfecting these techniques for decades." Felix shook his head slowly. "Richard built the addition on our house in 1998. I recommended him to 3 neighbors. Vera insisted we use his company." The scope of the betrayal kept expanding like cracks in a foundation. Vera hadn't just been unfaithful, she'd brought her lover into their home, their neighborhood, their social circle. The audacity was breathtaking. "Where is she staying?" I asked. "Her sister's house in Brookline. Packed 2 suitcases and left Tuesday morning. Didn't even take her jewelry. Probably figured she'd be back within a week once you forgave her." That was her pattern with smaller deceptions: charity committee conflicts, forgotten social obligations, minor financial discrepancies, tears, apologies, promises to do better. I always forgave her. "This is different." "Yes, this is different." My phone buzzed with a text from Mick. "Damon's situation resolved. Client satisfied with results." I'd hired Mick for a secondary project after the birthday party revelation. If Vera had taught Isla advanced deception techniques, then Damon Vossel needed education about consequences. His wife, Monica, deserved to know what her husband was doing during his client meetings and business dinners. The confrontation had apparently gone well. Mick's report, delivered via encrypted email that afternoon, included photographs of Monica storming into Damon's office building, security camera footage of her throwing a drink in his face in the lobby, and witness statements from colleagues who'd watched the public humiliation unfold. "She called him a lying, cheating piece of garbage in front of his entire consulting team," Mick had written. Then she announced that his personal belongings would be on the front lawn by evening, and anyone interested in hiring a dishonest consultant should reconsider their business relationships. His reputation is finished. Damon's professional network had evaporated within hours. 3 client contracts were terminated by close of business. His partnership in the consulting firm was dissolved by emergency vote. Monica had filed for divorce and obtained a restraining order, preventing him from returning to their house. Isla, meanwhile, had discovered her lover's downfall through a frantic phone call that I'd overheard from my home office. She'd been staying at a hotel since the birthday party, unable to face the neighborhood gossip and unwilling to admit the scope of her deception to our son Benji. "Mom says it's all a misunderstanding," she'd told her friends during a conference call I'd monitored through our shared cloud account. "Holden recorded a private conversation and took it out of context. He's trying to destroy our family out of spite." The narrative revision was predictable, but ineffective. Too many people had heard the recording, understood the implications, witnessed the aftermath. Vera's reputation in the charity community was ruined. The art gallery had asked for her resignation. 3 board positions had been quietly revoked. "What about your son?" Felix asked as we walked to our cars. "Benji's staying with my sister until this settles. He doesn't need to see the worst of it." Probably wise. Children remember these moments forever. I'm hoping he'll remember that actions have consequences, that honesty matters, that some people will fight back when they're betrayed. Felix paused at his car door. "Are you fighting back or seeking revenge?" "Is there a difference?" "Revenge is personal. Justice is proportional." I considered his distinction as I drove home through the rain. The house felt different now, larger, emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Isla's presence had been removed along with her deceptions. The baby monitor sat silent on my office desk, no longer needed for surveillance, but the consequences were still unfolding. That evening, I received a call from Carol, whose husband worked on the community center project. "Holden, I wanted to apologize for the book club meeting. We had no idea what was really happening." "You couldn't have known." Vera was very convincing. She made it sound like you were neglecting Isla, that she was lonely and frustrated. We all believed her. "She's had decades of practice. Is there anything we can do? Benji's always welcome here if you need childcare help." The offer was genuine, reflecting a community response I hadn't anticipated. Instead of ostracizing me for exposing family secrets, the neighbors were rallying around the betrayed husband and his son. Vera's manipulation had backfired, revealing her character while generating sympathy for her victims. Similar calls came throughout the week. Invitations to dinner, offers of support, expressions of outrage at Vera and Isla's behavior. The social consequences were spreading beyond the immediate family, affecting their reputations in ways that would last for years. Justice or revenge? Perhaps Felix was right about the distinction, but the results looked identical from my perspective. The foundation of lies had been exposed, the structure of deception had collapsed, and everyone responsible was dealing with the aftermath. My phone rang again. This time, it was Isla. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About ending this insanity before it destroys everyone. I'm not the one who destroyed anything. Meet me at the house tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. We can work this out like adults. Adults don't usually require supervision, but I'll consider it." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'll be there, with witnesses." The line went quiet for several seconds. "Fine. Bring whoever you want. This ends tomorrow." She was right about one thing. Tomorrow night, this would definitely end. The storm hit just as Isla's car pulled into our driveway at 7:52 p.m. I watched from the living room window as she sat in the driver's seat for nearly 5 minutes, probably gathering courage or reviewing strategy with Vera, who sat in the passenger seat like a general preparing for battle. Damon Vossel emerged from the back seat, which surprised me. I'd expected Isla and her mother, but bringing her disgraced lover suggested desperation rather than strategy. His consulting business was finished, his marriage was over, and his reputation was destroyed. What did he hope to accomplish here? I activated the security system I'd installed 3 days ago. Cameras in every room, audio recording throughout the house, live streaming to a private server, and automatically shared with my attorney, Mick and Felix. Whatever happened tonight would be documented and witnessed by multiple parties. The doorbell rang at exactly 8 o'clock. "Hello, Isla, Vera, Damon." I stepped aside to let them enter, noting their nervous energy and careful positioning. "Interesting weather for a house call." "We need to discuss terms," Vera announced, taking charge as usual. "This situation has gotten completely out of hand." "Which situation? Your decades of adultery, Isla's affair, or the public exposure of both?" "Your vindictive behavior is destroying the entire family," Isla said. "Benji needs stability, not parents who are at war. Benji needs honesty, something he wasn't getting from his mother or grandmother." They moved into the living room, claiming the sofa like they were establishing territory. Damon remained standing near the fireplace, looking uncomfortable and out of place. His presence here violated the restraining order Monica had obtained, which meant he was risking arrest for a conversation that couldn't possibly benefit him. "What do you want?" I asked. "We want you to stop," Vera said. "No more recordings, no more investigations, no more public humiliation. In exchange, we'll agree to reasonable divorce terms and shared custody." "You're not in a position to negotiate." "Everyone makes mistakes," Isla said. "I made a mistake with Damon, but that doesn't justify destroying our entire family. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. An affair is a choice. Multiple affairs across generations suggest a pattern of behavior." "You're being deliberately cruel," Vera interjected. "Felix and I could have worked through our problems privately. Instead, you chose public embarrassment. You chose public embarrassment when you decided to discuss affair logistics where I could overhear them." The conversation was following a predictable script: minimization, blame shifting, appeals for mercy from people who'd shown none themselves. But I sensed something else underneath their words, a desperation that suggested they weren't just here for negotiation. "What are you really after?" I asked. Damon spoke for the first time. "We want the evidence, all of it. Recordings, photographs, financial records, everything your investigator collected. So you can destroy it? So we can move forward without constant threats," Isla said. "You've made your point. We understand the consequences. Now let's end this." "The consequences haven't even started yet." Thunder crashed outside as the storm intensified, rain hammering against the windows with increasing force. The house felt isolated, cut off from the neighborhood, which was probably intentional timing on their part. "You can't keep punishing us forever," Vera said. "At some point, you need to accept that marriages end, people make mistakes, and life goes on." "People make mistakes," I agreed. "But you made choices. Deliberate, calculated, methodical choices over a period of years. You taught your daughter to deceive her husband, helped her coordinate an affair, provided cover stories and alibis. That's not a mistake. That's a conspiracy." "You're being dramatic." "Am I? Let's review the evidence." I activated the wall-mounted television and began displaying the archive I'd compiled over the past month. Credit card statements showing hotel charges and restaurant bills, text messages between Isla and Damon, calendar entries that contradicted Isla's claimed whereabouts, photographs of Vera entering hotels with Richard Blackwood 15 years ago. "Stop," Isla said. "We've seen enough." "Have you?" "Because there's more. Financial records showing payments between Vera and Richard's construction company, property transfers that benefited his business, a pattern of financial infidelity that lasted 7 years. Vera's composure finally cracked. "Those are private matters. Privacy ended when you decided to involve me in your deceptions. Every lie you told, every cover story you provided, every piece of advice you gave Isla, all of it affected my marriage, my family, my life." "What do you want from us?" Damon asked. "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. That betrayal isn't consequence-free, that some people fight back when they're attacked. We never attacked you, Isla protested. You attacked my marriage. You attacked my trust. You attacked my relationship with my son by forcing me to expose his mother's infidelity. Every lie you told was an attack on my reality. The storm outside was reaching peak intensity, wind howling around the house, rain lashing the windows. The power flickered twice but held steady, keeping the security cameras recording and the evidence displays visible. "This is insane," Vera said, standing up abruptly. "We came here to negotiate, not to be lectured by someone who's clearly having a psychological breakdown. Sit down, Vera." "Excuse me?" "Sit down. We're not finished." Something in my tone must have convinced her, because she sat back down, though her expression had shifted from annoyed to concerned. "You want to know what I want?" I continued. "I want Felix to keep the house, the cabin, the retirement accounts, and his dignity. I want Isla to explain to Benji why Mommy was lying to Daddy for over a year. I want Damon to find a new career since his reputation in consulting is finished. And I want you, Vera, to understand that your 37 years of marriage are over because you couldn't keep your mouth shut on a baby monitor." "You can't control all of that," Damon said. "Can I? Felix's divorce attorney has access to all the financial records from your affair with Vera. Isla's behavior is documented in detail. Your wife Monica has already filed restraining orders and initiated divorce proceedings. The social consequences are spreading through the community like ripples in a pond." "What about Benji?" Isla asked. "What about your son? My son will learn that his father doesn't tolerate betrayal, that actions have consequences, and that some fights are worth having. He'll also learn that his mother chose an affair over her family's stability." Lightning illuminated the living room as the storm reached its peak. In that moment of stark white light, I saw 3 people who'd finally understood they'd made a critical miscalculation. They'd assumed I was too trusting, too busy, too comfortable to fight back effectively. They'd been wrong. "Get out," I said quietly. "Holden," Isla began. "Get out of my house. All of you. Now." They left without further argument, hurrying through the rain to Isla's car. I watched from the window as they drove away, probably heading to a hotel to plan their next move. But there wouldn't be a next move. The evidence was secure, the consequences were in motion, and the foundation of their deception had been completely destroyed. I poured myself a drink and sat in my empty house, listening to the storm rage outside while reviewing the security footage on my phone. Everything had been recorded, documented, preserved for future reference. Felix called at 10:30 p.m. How did it go? They wanted me to destroy the evidence in exchange for reasonable divorce terms. What did you tell them? I told them the truth. Actions have consequences. Yes, he said. They certainly do. The storm passed by midnight, leaving the neighborhood clean and quiet. I sat in my office, reviewing architectural plans for the community center project, thinking about foundations and structural integrity. Some buildings could be renovated when problems were discovered. Others needed to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch. My marriage fell into the second category, but that was acceptable, because I'd learned something important about myself during this process. When pushed, I pushed back. When betrayed, I fought back. When attacked, I defended myself with every tool available. The house was quiet, secure, and entirely mine. Tomorrow, I'd start building